Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Timmy Tiny Wheels, the only channel where a man, a wrench, and an unreasonable number of spark plugs try to explain vehicular history without catching fire. Now I know what you're thinking. Timmy, what motorcycle could possibly make me feel nostalgic, stylish, and just slightly unsafe all at once? Well, buckle up your helmet straps and hold your fried Twinkies, because today we're diving tail-first into the two-wheeled American oddity known as the Cushman Super Eagle. Ah, yes, the Super Eagle. A scooter that wanted to be a motorcycle, looked like a miniature Harley after a diet of cornbread and gasoline, and made you feel like you were doing 8 even when you were crawling uphill at 30. And yet, it worked. Somehow, gloriously, it worked. Before we crack open the history book, or in my case, a parts catalogue stained with grease and regret, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It keeps these stories alive, keeps my garage light flickering, and ensures Bob doesn't try to convince me that his Vespa was a military prototype from Area 51. Now, to understand the Cushman Super Eagle, you first need to understand its maker. Cushman Motor Works of Lincoln, Nebraska, land of cornfields and surprisingly ambitious engineering. The company was founded way back in 1901 by cousins Everett and Clinton Cushman. They originally built small industrial engines, boring stuff like water pumps and lawnmowers, but during the war they shifted gears and made scooters for the military, including a model that could be parachuted into battle. Yes, ladies and gents, Cushman was literally dropping scooters from the sky before Uber Eats even existed. After the war, Cushman kept building scooters for civilians, and in 1949 they introduced the original Eagle. It wasn't like the curvy step-through scooters of Europe. It had a proper fuel tank, fat fenders, visible exhaust pipes, and a frame that said, "No, I don't do espresso, I do black coffee and bad decisions." But by 1959, competition from slick European scooters like Lambretta and Vespa was heating up. Japanese imports like the Honda Super Cub were arriving too. Cushman knew they had to do something big, or at least medium big. Enter the Cushman Super Eagle. The Super Eagle was essentially a glammed-up version of the original Eagle. It had fancy sheet metal covers over the forks, a bigger rear fender enclosure known as the dress panel, and styling that borrowed heavily from 1950s American cars. Tailfins included, attitude mandatory. It wasn't just a scooter anymore. It was a statement, a middle finger on two wheels to the idea that scooters had to look European, dainty, or vaguely like kitchen appliances. Cushman pitched it to teenage boys, early commuters, and even moms and dads who didn't want to shell out for a full-size car. And at just $425 in 1959, it was cheaper than most used motorcycles and far cheaper than a new car. One ad even claimed it had penny-a-mile fuel economy. Technically, the Cushman Super Eagle wasn't shy on cleverness either. Under the seat sat a 21 cubic inch, single-cylinder, 4-stroke Husky engine, Cushman's own cast-iron brute. It produced between 7.5 and 8 horsepower, depending on the year and phase of the moon. Mounted horizontally under your seat, the air-cooled Husky breathed through a Tillotson side-draft carb. It had enough low-end torque to tow your dreams uphill, and sometimes even your date if you promised not to drive over any manhole covers. Power was sent to the rear wheel via a 2-speed semi-automatic transmission. Now this wasn't your modern CVT nonsense. No, sir. This setup featured a centrifugal clutch that let you twist and go, but also a foot clutch and a hand shift lever, just to make sure you never got too comfortable. It was like learning to ride a motorcycle and operate a sewing machine at the same time. Suspension? Front forks were telescopic with coil springs, and there was even some air assist damping. But the rear wheel? Oh, that baby was bolted straight to the frame. No shocks, no springs, no mercy. Your rear suspension came in the form of a spring-mounted seat, which felt like sitting on a padded seesaw over a pothole. The brakes were cable-operated drum types, 6 inches in diameter, which for a scooter was downright generous. They could take a beating before fading, though not recommended while descending the Rockies. Wheels were 10 inches, steel with balloon tires, offering decent cushion until you hit railroad tracks and saw your soul leave your body. In terms of dimensions, the Super Eagle had a 54 inches wheelbase, was 73 inches long, 33 inches wide across the handlebars, and stood 39 inches high. Dry weight hovered around 270 pounds, more than a Vespa, less than my Uncle Hank after Thanksgiving. But that solid steel frame gave it a sturdy ride, even if it did mean your back had to sign a waiver. Top speed, somewhere between 50 and 60 miles per hour, depending on gearing and how aggressively you leaned forward. It got there quick enough to surprise you, but not quick enough to lose your hat. And on fuel economy, you'd be laughing all the way past the gas station. Cushman claimed up to 75 miles per gallon, which is better than most modern cars. Though admittedly, most modern cars don't come with foot clutches and backward throttles. Yes, that's right. Here's one of my favorite quirks. The Cushman Super Eagle throttle twisted forward, not backward. That's right. You had to push the grip away from you to accelerate. Why? Because someone at Cushman thought, hey, let's make sure no one borrows this scooter without a training session and a strong drink. Now let's talk design. The real reason why half the people bought the Super Eagle and the other half stared at it like it just fell off a parade float. This thing looked like it was designed by a team of mechanics, hot rodders, and maybe one guy who misunderstood what streamlined meant. It had enclosed fork aprons, full fenders, and that glorious dress panel wrapping around the rear wheel like a chrome tuxedo jacket. The overall vibe? Jet-age Americana with a side of backyard barbecue. The Super Eagle didn't try to be European or delicate. It was a scooter with broad shoulders, big handlebars, and a top-mounted fuel tank that looked suspiciously like it had wandered off a Harley and gotten shrunk in the wash. You sat high, rode proud, and prayed the wind wouldn't blow you into a ditch during a left turn. It had personality. Unlike modern scooters that look like office chairs on wheels. By the mid-1960s, however, things started changing. Imports were everywhere. Buyers wanted convenience over character, and Cushman's style-first retro-tech scooter began to look dated. In 1965, Cushman ended scooter production. Remaining Eagles were sold as 1966 models, and then the brand leaned into golf carts and utility rigs. From there, the company pivoted to golf carts and utility vehicles. A noble retirement, like a rock star becoming a substitute teacher. Let's talk cash. Back in 1959, the Cushman Super Eagle sold for around $425. That's about $4,600 in today's money, or roughly 4,250 euros. By 1965, prices for the better-equipped versions nudged up to $500. Fast forward to the collector market, and the Super Eagle's value has risen like a loaf of bread in Nebraska heat. Restored examples today usually sell in the $3,000 to $6,000 range, but rare variants with original paint, correct trim, and all the factory chrome goodies can go higher. The record? In 2024, a pristine 1966 Super Eagle sold at auction for $8,400, including fees. Now that's a lot of scratch for a scooter that shakes your kidneys. Still, compared to vintage Harleys, Lambrettas, or even early Hondas, the Super Eagle is a surprisingly affordable collectible. It's easy to wrench on, parts are available thanks to enthusiast clubs, and best of all, it makes people smile. Nobody looks at a Super Eagle and says, "That looks boring." They say, "What is that? And where can I get one?" Don't forget to subscribe to Timmy Tiny Wheels. We've got more tiny machines, big laughs, and occasional bruised tailbones coming your way. And remember, if your scooter doesn't rattle your teeth or challenge your left foot, is it even worth riding?